6B is going to be moved right below student representatives, because the person needs to leave right away. And we're headed up.
All right.
You're on board.
Hi, everybody. So it's the beginning of March, so we just finished our Winter Carnival at the high school, and it was a success as usual. The seniors won. And something that's really exciting is a group of the German students are leaving this Saturday for Germany for an exchange program for 3 weeks, and I'm one of those kids, so I'm really excited for that.
Nice. Awesome. That's cool.
As far as sports go, the girls' alpine ski team and the boys' Nordic ski team both won states, which was awesome, and the boys' basketball team won KVACs. The play goes up tomorrow night at 7, so that's going to be running for the next couple days. It should be a good show. Also, Katie Ide and Caroline Welch made the Maine State ski team, which is really exciting. And let's see, Teen Issues is happening on the 20th, and that's all I got.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's already on.
Moose team, innovation and invention. On Moose, the kids are ending their unit on innovation and invention with a final physics class, a narrative about technology and how it could impact the future, and completing argumentative essays.
On the Royal team, students have been presenting a month-long project that they have been working on about an Olympic sport, and they have just started to write a bid for a city in the United States to host the Olympics. In another class, students are working on their debate skills by taking different sides of popular sports controversies.
Katahdin, CSI Forensics, and the Foundations of the Holocaust. On Katahdin, the kids are ending their trimester 2 unit. The kids are working on keynotes presenting key facts about the beginning of the Holocaust. And in CSI and Forensics, the students are running through the crime scene simulation, and they are learning the skills that they learned in class to crack the case.
On Sebago, they have been working on the Rube Goldberg project and trying to make simple machines. They also created masks put on display at the arts night and had a student performance as part of a group with the GT Math and GT Art students.
Acadia, Genetics, Disease, and Adaptation. The students on Acadia are dissecting organisms and learning about current Maine laws that tighten vaccination exemption for children, with students potentially going to testify in court.
And school-wide. So, Winter Carnival was a huge success this year. It took place the week before February vacation. Every day of the week, there was a theme, so PJ Day, grade, color day, etc. And every student who participated in the theme day got a point that went towards their grade. The 8th grade pulled out the win this year, with 7th grade coming in second and 6th grade last. At the end of the week, we had an assembly which included anything you could do, I could do better, egg roulette, and a beach ball game. Our arts night was a success as well. There was student and teacher artwork presented, a silent auction, and food. It also featured many musical acts, including solos and duets for both singing and for instrumental pieces. The GT/Sebago dance occurred during the night, and there was some theatrical acting and a solo dancer. Finally, 2 songs were performed by a new band formed by Marana Cook students called ADBC. As students continue working on the original play that had been written by the music teacher, Mr. Scarponi. The play is called I Am Me, and the set has been made by Adam Scarponi and Greg Hatt. The play will be on March 29th and March 30th. All of the middle school winter sports are done, with the last ski races being in the last few weeks, and our trimester 2 is coming to an end next week, along with our 4th rotation of UA. I think that's it.
That's it, huh? So, this vaccination, are you in favor or disfavor of it?
Well,
Good answer.
Yeah.
Are you looking at both sides of the coin or
I-
just one side?
well, I'm very pro-science, and so if you know, if science can back it up, then it's probably true to me, and I don't really partake in superstitions. And the idea that vaccinations cause autism is just that, a superstition with multiple,
Right.
you know, research papers proving that they don't, and one proving that they might. And so it's,
Well, in the
you know,
news this week, measles is a major outbreak
right.
in about 11 or 12 states.
So, yeah, and what's really interesting is, you know, how if you track the amount of like superstitions about vaccinations, and then you track the amount of people who get sick from diseases like flu, measles, you know, they go up at the same time. It's really interesting. What do you think, Esme?
No opinion yet, huh? We didn't hear his story yet. Well, I agree with you. Thank you very much.
All right.
And enjoy your trip to Germany. Okay, so we're going to move on to 6B, so concerning the Spain trip, $3,095 per student.
And we do have Kelly Fry here with a student. I don't know, Kelly, if you'd like to say a few words about the trip before.
Good evening, everybody. It's really nice to be here, and let me just say how nice it is to be back in school. Grace Batchelder is a member of the class of 2019. She was on the Spain trip last year, which I was not. However, just know that you're approving the 12th trip that I have taken students on. I've been doing this since 1997. I've never lost anybody yet, although one year it was close. And every year, the kids get more and more and more out of it. Several years ago, back in, I believe, 2014, we changed companies. And the reason we did is because my initial thing was I wanted to bring the cost down. We were getting way up there. And if you look at that figure, that's not a small figure, I understand. But we brought the money down by over $1,000 by changing companies. And the focus of Students Love Travel, which is the company we travel with now, is to teach kids how to travel internationally. These kids have to do just about everything. They put them right through the ringer. They have to buy plane tickets. They have to buy train tickets. They have to get their own boarding passes at the airport. They have to buy metro tickets. They have to research restaurants every night to figure out where they're going to eat. They all have a research topic they have to present when they get there. They have to act as tour guide. I'm not allowed to sit with them at dinner. They have to negotiate the menu and the waiter without me. And they all do it, and they learn so darn much from it. I'm so happy with this company, I can't even tell you. And plus, I love the fact that they're local. They're out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They're not big. They're not big at all. But they are good, and they have worked with me when I've asked to move things around, change the trip. They focus on one school. They don't put us with another school. They don't do the big bus thing. We do all public transportation. The kids learn how to figure it out, which is what we want them to do. And of course, they see an awful lot of incredible things, artwork and architecture. The food is fantastic. And Grace, do you want to talk about anything that strikes you, that what you learned or what you did that stands out for you?
Going on the Spain trip, it really taught me to be more independent. I definitely did have to make a reservation at a restaurant. I did have to buy my own ticket to the airport and also on the subway, the train. My favorite part about the trip was definitely the beautiful paintings that we got to see at the beautiful art museums and also the cathedral in Toledo. Just seeing how tall the building, the structure was, it was just miraculous. And I definitely recommend that we can keep this going for future classes.
And her sister wants to go on this trip.
Yes.
So, If you have questions for me, please feel free. Please also remember that Dr. Conway was part of this trip. And was part of it. And also our videographer's daughter went back in '04? I don't remember when Ashley graduated, but no, it is funny how those things do come up. So please, anybody with questions, please ask.
How many students do you have?
Depends on the year. Last year I had 17. This year I may not have more than 10. A lot depends on how the cycle goes. There was a big shakeup in Spanish last year. I wasn't here for 10 months, and my numbers dropped dramatically. I went from, I don't know how many students, but I think last year's Spanish 3 class, for example, was 18 kids. This year's is 10. The cycle goes around, too. It's funny how, like, one year, it's the cool thing to sign up for German. Another year, it's the cool thing to sign up for Spanish, for French. Seriously, it does. It goes around. I've been here 24 years, and I swear I could track it. But I will take the kids that want to go. I can take a group as small as 6. And part of the reason we moved it out of February break, we did that right up until the 2016 trip. I moved it out of February break is because we'd lose the basketball players and the skiers. Every single time. And as it is, I have a young lady who's making a decision about whether she wants to go to Spain next year or she wants to ski for Easterns. And she's already told me she's going to Spain. She's already told me. I've never had a kid regret it yet. I've had kids regret not going. I've never had a kid regret going on the trip. Other questions? Yep.
I probably should know already, but
No, it's fine.
how much interaction do they get with local people?
Much as we can give them. As much as we can give them. I try to stay out, and I have trouble staying out of the picture, I got to tell you. But I try really hard to stay out of the picture and let them do it. They've got to go figure out the stores. They've got to go figure out the restaurants. They find out that a lot of things I tell them are true. They really do. I know. It's amazing how we get home and they'll say, "Oh, gee, Senor, you said that was going to happen." And it did. And so, again, I want the kids to learn that the world is not just Maine. Heaven knows I don't want them to leave the state. I want them to stay here. But I want them to see what the world is like. And it's a big world out there. The kids going on the Gap trip, they're going to come home so enriched and so empowered and so much stronger for going out and finding what that trip is going to be like. And what the world is like. They also find an awful lot out about their own country and what the viewpoint is outside the United States, which has its good points and its bad points. Other questions for me?
From a funding perspective, oops, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
pardon me.
no, that's
From a
fine.
funding perspective, do you raise money for this trip? How's this one work? I'm not sure.
We do as much as we can.
Sure, yeah.
That's a high figure. Parents are going to sacrifice for their kids. That's why we start planning a year in advance. Okay? Some of these kids have been planning for this trip since they hit middle school. And I won't take them younger than juniors because I want them to have had their world history. I want them to have that background so they'll have an understanding of what they're going to see. They're going to be standing next to a 2,000-plus-year-old aqueduct that is held together with gravity when the Romans really knew how to build. Okay? And they can't appreciate that if they haven't had the background and haven't had the history and the culture training. But we do fundraise as much as we can. I have certain fundraisers I do. I ask the parents to help me. But I also say to them, I said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh has no time. These are busy, busy, busy kids. They are playing 3 sports, and they are in honors classes, and they are doing everything under the sun. They are getting into awesome colleges. We have a future Husson student sitting next to me.
All right.
And they work as hard as they can. I know, Grace, you did a lot. You started fundraising, I think, your sophomore year, didn't you? Yeah, so
So what's the average
that they
amount
can
that
bring
comes out
in?
of pocket?
Oh, brother.
just
Nobody
thinking-
has to fundraise. Most
Okay,
of the kids
good.
can bring in at least $500 to $700.
Okay.
Some of them more. A lot of times what the parents will do is they will say, okay, that's your spending money.
Okay.
Because believe it or not, the kids want to shop.
Oh, no, I can't imagine.
Yeah, they want to bring home swords, and they want to bring home shoes, and they want to bring home all kinds of stuff. Oh, I'm not kidding. And you should see the swords. Those are weapons. Which, I tell them, you buy it, it stays in the box till you get home. We are not doing sword fights in the hotel hallways. Don't laugh. That happened to a group that was not my group. That's the other thing that I'm extremely proud of. Marana Cook's got a stellar reputation with this company. They love us to death because they know the kids are going to be ready to go. They know they're going to know their stuff. They know they're going to do all the best they can. They know they're going to have to get in there and get their feet wet. And it's a scary thing, isn't it, Grace? It's scary to get out there and go, I'm going to say all this stuff I learned in class and it's really supposed to mean something, right? It's scary. Language is a scary thing for kids. I really believe that. We try to get rid of as much of the risk as we can. This is the coolest thing I ever get to do with kids. It really is. So please let us go.
I move that we allow the out-of-country travel to Spain in March of 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the budget workshop, and extracurricular.
So as he's coming up to the microphone, this is our new Director of Student Activities, Brandt Remington. He was hired in January. I know the board had asked if they could meet him at some point, and unfortunately, he was out doing his job and did a fantastic job helping us through the basketball season. So he's here for the first time tonight, so let's try to be gentle on him, okay?
Gentle, yeah. Yeah, actually, the night I was officially hired, I was working in the gym, and Jay came in, and I said, do I go home or do I stay and finish working? And he goes, no, you get to stay and finish work. I'm like, yeah, all right. So good evening, everybody. We have in and extracurricular activities 5 new programs and/or positions. I'd like to go over with you real quick. I've asked to be brief. If I'm too brief, please let me know. I usually like to talk a lot, but I'm going to try my hardest to keep it really short for you. First program is Student Advisory Advisor. This is a program that was already in the contract, but it hasn't been in existence for a while, and the middle school is wanting to bring this back. It's basically a form of student government, very similar to what the high school has with their student senate. And the program cost would be just the stipend of roughly $2,300. The second one is an additional coach for the cross-country running program at the middle school. The numbers are growing by quite a bit, and we currently only have one adult that's in charge of approximately 40 middle school kids running all over the place around campus and when they go to races and stuff like that. And if you've ever worked with middle school students, 10 is enough for one adult, let alone 40. So we'd like to add in a cross-country assistant coach, and the program cost of that would be roughly the stipend of $1,886. The third thing is very similar to that position. This one is a Nordic skiing assistant coach for the middle school. Same reasons. This year they had close to 40 skiers, and cross-country running and cross-country skiing are slightly different. Cross-country skiing, obviously you have to put on skis and poles and all that stuff, so you have equipment that you have to deal with when you're first learning how to do the sport, whereas cross-country running, you can kind of walk fast and you start to become a cross-country runner, whereas with skiing, you got to really learn how to use the skis and the poles. So what the issue with having a lot of students is that the coaches have a hard time meeting the needs of all the current skiers that are out there, because you have some that are really competitive and ready to go in races, and then you have some that are learning the sport for the first time. So the current coach is being pulled in many directions, and having an assistant to help with not only practices but race day meets would be extremely helpful. And the cost of that, again, would be just like the cross-country running coach for middle school, stipend of $1,886. The fourth one deals with the high school robotics team. We currently kind of have a high school robotics team where a staff member is basically volunteering his time to work with the kids in robotics, and they have gone to some competitions. We like to add that into the budget permanently. That would carry a stipend cost of $2,355. Transportation would be approximately $2,000 because they do go to competitions around the state and compete. And the equipment for that program would be approximately $3,000. And finally, the largest one out of the five is I would like to put the uniform request back in. I know previously to my starting here, we've tried to add money in the budget for uniforms for both the middle school and the high school. One of the first things I did when I started my job in January was go through a lot of the equipment for both the middle school and the high school, and not only was I overwhelmed by the amount of stuff and old stuff that we have, but just the disorganization with it all. And as I went through uniforms of every activity that we had in the middle school and high school, I came across many outdated uniforms, uniforms that have rips in them, uniforms that have faded numbers and lettering on them. And with this proposal, it would help us create a 4 to 5 year uniform rotation for the two schools, where, for instance, say girls soccer got new uniforms this fall, they would be up for new uniforms again 5 years from that time. And the budget for that would be, middle school would be about $3,800, and the high school would be $6,800. I haven't seen every single piece of uniform for all sports. Mostly seen the winter, and I've started digging through some of the spring. But if you were at the girls' basketball playoff game, for example, when they went to Spruce Mountain, or when they were down at the Portland Expo, you may have noticed that not all the girls' uniforms matched. They only had 15 girls that were dressing for the playoff game, and there were 2 or 3 that were wearing uniforms that were a year or two older than the ones that the rest of the girls were wearing. Some people say uniforms aren't that important, but to me, if you're in any line of work, how you dress and present yourself makes a big difference. I know that I used to umpire baseball games, and 90% of the battle of being a good umpire or an official is the way you presented yourself when you walked onto the field. So if I walked onto the field wearing a uniform that I've had for 9 years, coaches and parents aren't going to take me as seriously as they would if I'm looking sharp, my shoes are shine, my hat is clean, everything is pressed, and I'm looking good. Same thing is true with the kids when they're wearing the uniforms. They want a sense of pride with our community. It's a very, very strong, tight-knit community. That's one thing that attracted me here. But the ability to really show their pride literally on their sleeve and on their backs would be even more vital for that, for when they are traveling and playing on the teams. So that's all I have for co and extracurricular that's beyond the regular budget for additions. So any questions, I'll take those now.
Go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Were there any coaching positions that weren't filled this year?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Were there any coaching positions that weren't filled this year?
I
know, I mean, you're halfway into the year. So.
Yeah, the winter was fine. Everything was filled for winter. And the spring, we have one more position to fill.
No,
and
I just meant as far as the seasons have gone on, like certain teams don't have JV teams.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just curious if those positions are in the budget. Is that money just gone as far as, yeah.
The only one that was really like that was this year at the middle school. We originally had budgeted for 7th and 8th grade, both boys and girls soccer. And I think what happened was they didn't have enough teams to play, so we did cut it back to just one team each, and we actually cut it back in the budget. But in next year's budget, I have both teams for each grade budgeted, so.
Yeah. With the soccer especially, we play in the Capital Area League, and I don't know how it was done previously to me, but if we were to have the numbers again like we have, I just checked with both middle school coaches this fall, and the numbers were 30 or more. And I used to coach soccer for 20 years, and you can't play a middle school soccer game with 30 kids. You're not going to make anybody happy, and you're not going to develop anything with your program. And like I said, I don't know how it was done in the past, but if we have those numbers again in the fall, and that remains in the budget, I'll work hard to make sure that those teams have games, because there's plenty of schools within a short distance that can play those games.
Yeah, and the reason
outside the league.
The reason I was asking is, has participation gone up crazy as far as, are kids just going to different sports, and other sports are the numbers are dwindling as far as that, I mean?
Yeah, from the numbers that I've seen that were kept track of previously, it's not going down. If anything, it's going up. The ski teams, for example, are keeping their strong numbers as they usually do. I just did signups for the spring, and every single sport, with the exception of maybe one or two, numbers are higher than the coaches and I expected it to be. In fact, we've got a couple of co-op teams, boys lacrosse and girls lacrosse, that we co-op with Winthrop, and if we weren't co-oping with Winthrop, we would probably be able to field a full team anyway without the support from that school. But now, co-oping with Winthrop, both the boys and girls lacrosse could possibly have a full schedule of JV games. The numbers look really good. Track, there's over 35 already signed up, and we always get kids that are going to add. So numbers are holding really strong. And that's another reason for the uniforms. And I've been to ABS meetings twice now, and they are hearing, as well as I am, from coaches and parents, that the fundraising is getting out of hand, and it's getting really difficult because everybody wants to fundraise to try to get new uniforms all the time. It's usually a priority on the team is fundraising for uniforms so that the kids can look good and all that, and they're getting pretty tired of that.
Is there a minimum number to have an activity continue?
A minimum number?
Yeah.
It depends on the sport. Yeah. Did you have any sport in particular?
No, I just know that certain things that Miranda Cook offers quite a bit of programming.
Yep.
And if they're increasing in, let's say, cross-country and skiing or whatever,
yep,
then I would assume the numbers would be dwindling in others. That's,
right, yeah, that makes sense.
That's just what I'm thinking. I mean, my daughter she does speech and debate,
yep,
and their numbers have gone down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is there a minimum number that you would need in order to have a coach and to?
It would depend on the sport. We easily have the numbers to keep a varsity level team at all level, in middle school and high school. And then there's some sports where, we can field 2 or 3 teams. It's like lacrosse. For girls lacrosse, you're going to have 12 players on the field. So ideally, you want to have 16 to 18 girls playing lacrosse to keep that one team going. And then once you start getting over 20, now you're looking at fielding a second team. So it kind of depends on the sport. When you're playing a softball, there's only 9 that are playing at a time. Basketball, you get 5. Boys basketball was able to field a freshman team, which they funded themselves, but they had the numbers to play 3 teams. So it depends on the sport. But yeah. Any other questions?
We thank you, Mr. Remington.
Thank you.
Moving on. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Did I hear properly that the students, the teams, and the parents are actually ending up competing with each other, trying to raise enough money to get uniforms?
I don't know if it's a competition to try to do that, but
Intentional competition.
right.
Getting stuck competing because of.
Right. I know that, one parent had expressed that, I won't name any businesses, but there's a business in the community that was getting tired of, it was one team after another constantly coming to them looking for help. I came here from Lewiston. It wasn't as big of a problem because, Lewiston's a lot larger, so there's many businesses that we could hit. When you do a bottle drive, if you spread yourselves out around the community, a neighborhood might see a bottle drive once or twice a year, whereas if you hear Manchester, Reedfield, wherever, probably every house is going to get hit if you do a bottle drive every single season. So, it's a little different that way. But I just know I'm hearing since I've been here that we have to fundraise all the time. And I know a lot of community members would like the school district to start picking up some of that to help out with it. Anything else?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Transportation.
Okay, and transportation, there's no changes in staffing. We're hoping that we have all the bus drivers that we need. It's been difficult this year. We have been approved through the Volkswagen National Settlement to purchase 2 buses for next year. The settlement will cover 80% of the cost of the bus, and we only have to budget for 20%, which is approximately what we budget if we go into a 4-year lease on a purchase, is we budget about 25, or it's the same amount. So the equipment line in transportation is going up $58,000. That's the cost, our share of 2 buses and the radios and cameras that need to go into those buses. But we will fully own these buses at this point. They will no longer be lease purchased. They will be fully owned by us. This is an increase to the equipment line, but at the same time, we have a $53,000 decrease in the lease purchase line because we have some leases going off. So they pretty much net each other. And you also have a copy of the bus inventory in the packet, and that just shows us the buses that we have and the years. The ones, I don't know if you printed it out in color or not. Well, yeah. So the yellow ones are the ones that we've just replaced either this year or last year, and we've just sold all of those. The 2 that are in light blue are the 2 that will be replaced through the VW settlement. And the items at the bottom are not buses. Those are other types of vehicles that we have. We have a van. We have 2 vehicles that Adult Ed has for CDL driving, and then we have the, I have to apologize, I forgot to put the pickup truck on here that we bought this year, so that one's not on here yet. And then we have the big John Deere tractor on here. So does anybody have any questions on that?
Moving on to cost centers, miscellaneous, adult education.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Vos. I'm the Adult Ed Director, and here with me this evening are Susan Simons and Nicole Cushing. This is my administrative support. So we're a really, really small cost center. So I want to start off with a brief overview of my program. I only get to talk to you all once a year. So I kind of like to just kind of give you an overview of what Adult Ed is. So if you've been here last year, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. Probably a lot of this is going to be the same. So I'd like to start off with just talking about enrichment. So an important part of any adult and community education program is enrichment classes. These offerings are especially critical to those living in rural areas where opportunity to access these services might be limited. And the adult and community education program here at 38 offers participants a chance to obtain valuable technical skills, complete required trainings, and access health and fitness opportunities. And yearly we have about 900 people that attend our enrichment classes. Another really big part of our program is education, obviously. So what we do is we prepare adult students in this area and surrounding areas for better, richer, fuller lives through our HiSET, which is the high school equivalency testing program, high school equivalency diploma, and also college transitions. By providing these skills, adult education provides hope and inspires students to become valuable and active members of the community. So I always like to, there's a couple really important statistics that I always like to mention to this group. Local governments gain approximately $6,000 in tax revenue for every adult who earns a high school diploma, and we usually have approximately 8 to 10 a year that go through our program. Income for Mainers aged 25 and over without a high school diploma averages about $15,000 a year, while those with a high school diploma average about $25,000 a year. And also about 63% of the U.S. jobs require education beyond high school. So it's critical for our students to, at a minimum, have a high school diploma. Now, the other really critical part of our program, and if you've been reading my board reports, you've probably seen some pretty exciting happenings in our CDL program. And this is our vocational level programming. So our CDL truck driving program has grown obviously dramatically over the course of this last year. This was made possible by partnerships with the Maine Community College System, Vocational Rehabilitation, and the Career Center that provided the CDL training free to participants this year. So we have 50 participants. They took the class for free this year. That's huge. And this fiscal year, we, through that program, brought about $100,000 into adult ed in revenue. So did very, very well. And hopefully the profits from this class will go toward future vehicle replacement, repairs and maintenance, and hopefully program expansion in the future. If anybody remembers 6 years ago when I was first here, I came into the program. We had a very, very old dump truck. I was here a year and the transmission went in that vehicle, and they wanted about $4,000 to have that transmission fixed. Without having some way of having money set aside, repairs like that would have shut down the program, and those 50 people that got that CDL training would not have received that this year. So it's really important to save for the future, and that's what I'm hoping that we're able to do. So truck driving is obviously the fastest growing career field in the United States right now, and this means that companies are willing to pay $20 to $25 an hour plus benefits to qualified drivers. And so I feel that by providing high school students at Maranacook with a chance to obtain a Class B certification before graduating would provide them with the skills needed to immediately enter the workforce and earn a livable wage. So having them or equipping them with more than a high school diploma when they leave here, have them with a CDL license and be able to go on and drive truck if that's something that they would like to do. So to expand the program at the high school, I'm asking for an additional $12,000 in revenue. And these monies will allow me to offer the training to 4 students. And I'm going to take the 4 students and the $12,000, and then I'm going to match that by writing grants. So I'll be writing grants, working with vocational rehabilitation to secure about additional $12,000. That will allow me to train up to 8 high school students, which would be a complete class. And they would take the CDL program, and then at the end or the conclusion of the program, they would receive a high school credit as well. So that's my plan for next year. Does anybody have any questions?
So your plan is just to make sure that you will expend as much as you bring in, even like including grants and everything, so you'll zero out?
Well, with grants, we try to zero out, but if there's a way to make money or have what would be called a rollover account, that's my dream. That's where we really need to go. The reason that we were able to continue this program 6 years ago when the dump truck went, I didn't have $3,000 extra to put toward the repair, and our CDL instructor at the time gifted us $5,000, and we went out and bought the vehicle that we have now. And like I said, if she hadn't gifted that money, there was no additional money. It would have been very difficult to obviously get that mid-year. I would have had to wait a complete year and then come before the board and then ask for something in the next budget, and that would have, the program would have shut down by then. So there needs to be a way of if we were able to, let's say we made a profit of $30,000, $40,000 this year in CDL, that needs to be carried over till next year to continue to support the program.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Awesome, thank you.
Moving on to food service.
We're not anticipating asking for anything additional over above what we asked for this year, which is $100,000 to help with the operating expenses and an additional $5,000 for equipment. The food service equipment in this district is getting very old, and so we're trying to start purchasing a little bit each year in order to make sure that we can operate well. But we do need that $100,000 to operate because we have very low free and reduced in this district, and that is basically the money that we get from the state is almost all just for free and reduced. So as long as we have low free and reduced, we're not going to get a lot of money from the state.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So, how much money, when it comes to our students not paying their lunch bills, how much debt is out there roughly in this district?
Because of the bill that was before the legislature, MSMA did ask us that. And so I had asked Jeff Bridges to get me that number so I could get it to MSMA. And at that point in time, that day, he was showing that we had about a $2,000 deficit on lunch bills that had not been paid.
And what happens to students in the district if they don't, I read the policy, but what happens in theory? How does that work? If a student doesn't pay their lunch bill? Like, I understand they get a different lunch. How does that work?
I believe the policy is that they get a bag lunch, but from what I understand, and this is what Jeff has talked about in the
Right, yeah,
past.
because I read the policy. I looked that up. but
Right,
I'm wondering
but
how
I
it-
think
how does that work?
what they try to do is they try to get that bag lunch to the student before they head down to the lunchroom. So they come in as if it was, they're bringing it from home, so it doesn't identify them in any special way. And I do know that the secretaries work a great deal with the families. They usually know which families are struggling, and they will try to repeatedly get them to sign up for free and reduced lunch.
No. I guess I just follow up. I believe that law is going to pass and go through, so, and which will make it so we can't have that policy.
Yeah.
And so probably going to have to, there was other districts that talked about other alternatives on how to collect that money, and
Well, and Jeff is on that already. Him and I had a discussion about it, and we are going to bring it to the A-team because that's what we thought too, that the bill was going to pass, and we just want to make sure we're all doing the same thing so that our students aren't, there's no food shaming going on here. So, yeah, we're definitely on it.
no, I definitely think it's a good thing that it's passing, because even though we give them a bag lunch, I mean, a second grader doesn't understand why mom and dad haven't paid their lunch bill.
Right.
Anybody else? Health Center.
Hi, I'm Becca Reynolds. I'm the director of the School-Based Health Center here at Maranacook. First, I'd like to thank the school board and Mr. Charette for the support that you've given to all of our students through your work as school board members and as our superintendent. I think it's amazing what you do, and we appreciate you, so thank you. It's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to speak with you this evening about our School-Based Health Center and to ask once again for your support. Our School-Based Health Center has been part of this community for 27 years. In looking back over my time here, I feel a great sense of pride in having a role in the health of our community. Our health center works to provide the highest quality mental and physical health services to students. We meet students where they are and connect them to the services that they need in a safe setting. In the first semester alone, our high school nurse, Anya Davidson, had over 1,300 visits with students. As a school nurse, Anya can see any student for any type of issue. She can help with managing chronic diseases, listening to student concerns around schoolwork and social issues, first aid, acute illness care, and many others. Anya refers students for ongoing counseling services or to the physician assistant as needed. Over 60% of our student body is signed up to receive expanded services, which allow them to see a counselor or physician assistant in the health center. Our health center also houses the athletic trainer who works with our student athletes throughout the sports seasons. This is a valuable service to many of our students as well. As you know, the health center has historically been supported by a combination of district funds as well as state funds. Last week, Dana Reynolds and Katie Ide joined me at the State House to testify before the Health and Human Services Committee in support of state funding for school-based health centers. And also, written testimony was submitted by Carter McFedrin, who is Patty's son and the grandson of one of the founders of the health center, Winnie McFedrin. So my daughter Dana is here to share the testimony that she read so that you can hear more about the health center from a student's perspective.
Hi, everybody. One of the things that makes Maranacook so special is our school-based health center, which is the longest-standing health center in the state. I'm a member of the Student Health Advisory Committee. This committee works to spread awareness to the student body and to our school community about the health center and all the services they provide for our students. Some of the awareness activities that we've been working on include suicide prevention awareness, promoting healthy relationships, education on vaping, and a promotional video highlighting the services that our health center provides. One of these key services provided by our health center is mental health counseling. As a junior in high school, the college search, participating in sports teams, extracurricular activities, and keeping up with schoolwork brings a lot of stress and anxiety to me and to many of my friends. And it's difficult and important to learn how to strategize and cope with the stresses of being a teen in our society. And yeah. Mental health has become an increasingly relevant issue in our school. One of my friends has been struggling with anxiety for most of the year, and as it got worse, she was no longer able to handle it on her own. So I suggested to her that she should access the counseling services through the health center. She began to see a counselor and has been reporting to me that she's doing much better, and she can now recognize when she feels an anxiety attack coming on and is able to calm herself down. She's healthier and happier, and most importantly, she can stay in class instead of having to go home due to her anxiety. The health center is a huge asset to our school, and it has been since it opened in 1992. Not only is it a place where students can come to stay healthy, but it is also a warm and welcoming environment where students feel like they belong. To feel accepted and loved is such an important part of being a young person, and I feel proud that my school can offer a place where everyone is accepted and feels like they belong. Yeah. So, go Health Center.
Thank you. I also asked Katie Ide to come and share, but she's going on a big competition for skiing tomorrow, so she's at home packing her bags. So anyway, long story short, my budget request for next year remains at $30,000, and that's basically been what we've asked for many years now. I'm also this year, however, requesting an additional $7,000, which I would like to place in reserve to help in the event of a loss of state funding, which many of you may recall actually happened last year, and we had to use some of our reserve funds to supplement that. So I would like to work on rebuilding that reserve. So an additional $7,000 would be a start to doing that. The funds that the district contributes support my salary, the salaries of our administrative staff, and other costs related to keeping the health center in business. And just for your information, the state contribution, which is what we generally bank on, is about $36,000. So our total operating budget is around $66,000 a year, and I think we get a lot of bang for that buck. So I'm really happy to be part of it. If there are questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
You're doing such an excellent job, no questions.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We work hard, we appreciate your support. Thank you.
But you forgot to mention that you're the reason why the middle school got their award.
I appreciate that, thank you. Hi, Betty.
Hi. What is the status of funding through the state at this point?
So the students testified just last week. There were two bills that were presented. One was to fund the existing school-based health centers, and another was to actually create more school-based health centers, so there's some movement in that area. So there's going to be a work session, hopefully next Thursday, although they're still planning that, where the Health and Human Services Committee will discuss the bills. And then I believe it will go to the Appropriations Committee, which decides sort of how the money is spent. And we may get an opportunity to testify again at that point. There was a really good showing at the Health and Human Services Committee last Monday. There were about 18 people from around the state that testified in favor of school-based health centers, and no one opposed to them. So I feel like we have a lot of great support to keep this, this valuable program moving in the state of Maine. Go Health Center.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, professional development assessment, curriculum? System?
Well,
don't mind going last, but it's hard to go after Becca.
There's one more after you.
But it's a pleasure to have people, professionals like Becca to work with in this district, and I hope that you keep that in mind as we look at things like professional development and assessment and curriculum, is that almost all of these budget areas cover work that many of us do collaboratively to keep our programs updated and current and as successful as the health programs are. So I'm going to start with professional development. The professional development budget includes professional development expenses for in-district staff development days, mentor stipends for new staff, and other certification negotiated stipends. And overall this year, it's up about 8%, and most of that is to do with negotiated salary benefit increases, but we have added 4 more mentor stipends for new teachers through the certification process because we have more new teachers every year and we need to mentor them. There's one change in policy. I think teachers now who come from another district, if they're new to our district, we need to provide them mentors too. So we're a little short in the last couple of years, so we've added some to that budget. Second area, do you want to ask questions about each one, or shall I just run through the 3 and then if you have questions? I'll just run through the 3. Keep going. Okay. Second area is district assessment. This includes district level assessments that we have to pay per student to administer, and some platforms for storing student data. Also, 50% of my salary and benefits are in this area in district assessment because I'm the district assessment coordinator. Fun job. If you're ever looking for something really fun. And the other half is in curriculum. And the increase in this is about 2.75%. Again, there's a very, very small increase in our NUIA contract for next year, which is one of our district assessments, and it may just have to do with the numbers. I didn't really track it down, but I noticed it had gone up like $100. And then the rest would be contracted salaries and benefit changes. We don't really have any significant changes in anything in either of those. And then the third area is the curriculum budget. And just to understand that curriculum budget covers salaries and benefits for any staff beyond their contracted year or time for developing and updating curriculum. And again, that also includes 50% of my salary. And some limited materials or supplies for curriculum leadership. District-wide, this is up 16% this year, but a lot of that is not because of increases in things, it's just because we shifted part. Is that correct, Bridget? We shifted part of the salary for the literacy coach we had always paid 50% of that salary out of Title I and Title II, and where we don't have somebody on contract right now, and we're not sure who will be hiring for next year, what their credentials will be, and there's been some changes in ESSA and other grants. We're just being a little conservative to see if we will put some back into grant funding in the future. Do you want to add anything else about that?
I'm good.
Yeah.
So basically, in Nancy's 3 areas, you didn't get any handouts on it because there are no major changes. Staffing is exactly the same, approximately, it's all the same assessments that we're doing. The only major change, other than regular negotiated salary and benefit increases, is just shifting of some of the literacy coaches' funding from a grant fund back into the general fund. But there's no staffing increases in her budget at all.
Any questions? Great.
Okay, debt service.
Do you want to do system admin first?
System administration?
Yeah, here.
You got another one
To me. System administration is.
So you just talk up about two of them.
System administration is the school board department and the superintendent's department. There is no staffing changes at all within those. Again, you didn't get any handouts because there's no major changes in there. The only, so the salary and benefits that are built in there are just negotiated salary and benefit increases. The supply lines are all kept the same. The only other change in system admin is that now that we actually have the regional service center up and running, and we know exactly what our dues are, the dues have now been budgeted in there. Last year, we only anticipated that it was going to be 1,000, but we didn't have, the RSC wasn't up and running yet. So now we realize that it's $4,000. So that's in there, along with the $1,200 dues for the NESDEC. That's the company that we went with this year to do our enrollment study. And so that's basically the increases in system administration.
Debt?
Now debt service.
Keep going.
You do have a copy of where our debt stands as of June 30th of this year. So this does not include the new bond or band that we're just going into. This is debt that as it currently stands and what those balances will be as of June 30th. And you also have on here the final maturity date for when all of the payments are going to be made on this. The top three items, 1, 2, 3, yeah. And then there's one additional one a little bit farther down. All of those have the final maturity date of 9/28/19. Those are the debt, next year will be the final year on those debts. And that is the first phase of the Siemens energy retrofit project. The following year.
So are they done with?
Next year will be the final year on that.
No,
one.
I'm saying then they're gone.
Then that payment is gone, yes, yes. That was financing the work that was done back in 2007. And the bottom section is all lease purchases, and most of those are 4-year leases, so they show the termination dates. And so consequently, that section will not be growing with buses. Usually we have 2 buses a year go on there, but next year that will no longer happen because we're getting them through the VW settlement. So on top of this, I've also budgeted for next year an estimated first interest payment that will need to be made in the spring of 2020, and I've budgeted $90,000 for that first interest payment on the bond that was approved. Any questions?
Just how confident are we that, just rereading the paper of all the different municipal buildings and schools that are going up, that they had a budget, they're finally looking at building it, and it's way out of whack.
The construction costs are going up.
How confident are we that we?
Well, we took the numbers directly that Oak Point gave us, and built into their numbers was a construction contingency. They had 2 different contingencies. One is a construction contingency that was put in there just in case construction costs went up. And the other one is a contingency for unknowns that come along. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do it with that. We won't know positively until the bids come in, and then we'll have to sit back and revamp and decide how we're going to handle things if they do come in that way.
Okay, thank you.
How's that bid process going? Are we getting close?
Sean has given me drafts of the things that he's going to oversee. I'm looking at those drafts right now. I do know that Oak Point is working on things. I think there's going to be SW Cole is going to be out here marking some spots on the road tomorrow, and then on Friday, they're coming in to do some soil tests. They're going to bore down in different places where SW Cole has marked, so we know that they're doing the work on the
road.
On the road. I know they've been in to meet with Sean in reference to the water tanks at the middle school, and I'm not sure I haven't heard anything on the high school roof or the Manchester project yet.
Because we got to be coming pretty close to getting that bidding process working.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they were very slow. I don't want them
Well, they seem to be moving faster now.
I mean, they were very slow.
Yeah.
Okay. Budget summary.
Manchester Schools on
So it's being handed around now. We'll give it a minute to get to everybody.
These are all the increases that people are asking for.
So on the first page that says General Fund School Summary Budget, you've got all of your schools, and then if you go across, you can see what was starting in 2016-17, moving across to 2019-20 proposed. You'll see the change number there along with the percent. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom of that page, you'll see the grand totals again with the same thing. So at this point, based on the requests that you have seen, the budget, the additional budget request is over $1.5 million, which is up 8.78% at this point, based on what you've seen. The second page is a list of all of those requests, just so that it's kind of a simplified, here's a request and this is what the cost was with that request. So
what happens in the next 2 years that I asked about?
Yep, so that's a really good question. So we have a couple things that we can't answer for at this point. One of them being negotiations. There'll be a contract. That's a big piece of what our budget is. Our budget is about 80% salaries. So that alone is going to be a big increase, which I don't have a number for that because we're in negotiations right now. About 10% of our salary comes into that benefits line, as well as your heating fuel and your transportation costs, et cetera. So again, that's can fluctuate a little bit based on what we get for where we stand health-wise. And that's actually a little bit more than 10%. So we really have about 7, 8, 9% that we can kind of take a look at. And I haven't met with my administrative team yet, which we will be doing shortly, and we will kind of take a look at staffing-wise what things may look like. But I don't see, based on enrollment studies that we've seen, anything major that's going to change in the next 2 years. So we really only have that 7 or 8% to play with. And I don't know if that's going to change a whole lot. But we will, as an administrative team, sit down and talk about, do they see any big things coming? We just haven't had the opportunity to do that since our last meeting at this point.
When you intend to have that done?
So I have actually an administrative...
You got the school board, or the towns coming in next week.
Right. I've got an administrative team actually meeting next Thursday. I can schedule a meeting sooner than that, obviously before the next school board meeting next Wednesday. We're
Because you're
probably...
going to be asked these questions.
Yep. Yep.
So not only do we have the 1.7 that you got to think about, we also have a bond that's out there. And that bond, even though we only going to pay interest the first year, actually is $386,000 every year. That, if you were to amortize it over the 15 years. So you're actually talking about this year, if you were to amortize that in there, $2 million.
Right.
That's part of the budget that's built into this budget, right?
No.
Bridget?
Yeah, I'll let Bridget answer.
The paper that was handed out that shows the summary, it's actually 2 pages. The front page is all the increases to the budget, and then the second page are decreases. Now, these are decreases that naturally occurred. They weren't something that we cut. Like in the current year, we have a half-year sabbatical. Next year, that is gone. So these were things that are the architect fees were in there this year. They're not going to be in there next year. So this 2 pages totals down to what the budget actually is increasing. Because I've gone through every single line and picked up all the little ups and downs and categorized it. So this list not only shows all the sheets that were handed out to you, but all the other lines merged in there. And it just shows you where all the increases and decreases fall. Again, this budget has a 10% increase built in for health insurance. I do not know if that's where it's going to come in. We will not get that final number until probably around April 1st. That could have a big swing in it. I'm, knock on wood, I'm hopeful that it will not go over. We haven't gone over in that, but we have been as low as 0 before too. So we'll just have to wait and see on that.
What line is our first interest payment built
On the first
into?
page, on the bottom.
Yes, I understand that.
What do you mean, what line?
Is it under facilities or?
Oh, you mean on the summary budget?
Yeah.
Okay, it will be under,
District-wide?
well, let me find,
So,
it's under the 900, district-wide, 900. So it's included in the line that is up $246,700.
so our interest payment is budgeted in?
Next year's interest payment is budgeted into our budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the following year, you got to add in double cost, which we're not paying on the bond this year. So not only you have 383, you have another 383. That's why you got to think further ahead.
Next year's.
So also remember, when you're looking at that total, we're in negotiations right now, so that $1.5 million includes enough money based on the conversation we had in executive session to negotiate in good faith. Just kind of keep that in mind also. So again, going forward, that's going to be, if you're going out like Dr. Carr is talking about into year 2 and year 3, there is going to be the negotiated agreement, salaries and benefits that is going to probably impact the budget going forward in a really big way. But again, we don't have those numbers because we're in negotiations right now. So those aren't solid numbers.
Well, we obviously can't go to town with an 8.78% increase.
Not gonna happen.
So I am assuming that the administrative team is working on prioritizing those increases that they presented and
Yes.
any other
Yes.
areas that can be.
I was hoping to get some direction from the board about either a dollar amount or a percent so that we can kind of finalize that prioritization of what do we feel like really needs to stay and what needs to go, or, be kind of pushed down the line. So that's, I guess, what I'm hoping that through this discussion can come from. Where would you like me to go with this now so that we can begin that work and we can come back with that to you sooner rather than later for obvious reasons?
So why don't we just start off with the 90,000 and add in the 383 and come up with what is that percentage of the total of this number?
I don't know what the 383 is you're talking about, Gary.
If you take the 5 point, whatever it is, 5.8, and divide it by 15 years, that has to come off.
Yes, I had an estimated amortization schedule that I got off the main bond bank website.
Okay.
I don't have that with me tonight, that's all in my.
But what I'm saying to you is that percentage is part, we gotta think of that because I know Reed Field and Mount Vernon both are hot on the trail to say no to us, okay? And with that no comes with that consideration on how you get that away from this here number, in other words. So in other words, if you came up and said, all right, I want to put 5%, and that other thing is worth 2.5, you got to subtract that 2.5, and that's what you got to shoot for. That's how it works. That's how business works. And that's why I asked to have those other numbers tonight, so that we could look at what can ship, what cannot ship. In other words, Ryan's stuff cannot ship. The stuff for the high school, which is a safety matter, that can't ship. Something can maybe move, and we get that accomplished, but we don't get it done this year, but we guarantee it's gonna happen next year, and the towns will approve it. Otherwise, you come in with this plus your wage increase, and the towns are gonna go berserk. I don't want that. This year, the state's gonna give us revenue, okay? And they're gonna give it to us next year, but the second year, it's not there. The reserves are gone. They're already spent that the state has. And then we're always on our own. And the other way they're gonna get the money is say, all right, well, we gave it to them, so now we can tax everybody. So the towns are gonna be taxed more, the people are gonna be taxed more. They're gonna say, no, we got taxed from the state because that's how my money's funneling to you. I don't wanna pay. I mean, that's just people.
So Jay, what you want from us this evening is a percentage goal?
Whatever you guys feel is where you want me to go. I'm looking direction from you. You've heard what Dr. Carr said, so I'm kind of looking for direction from you. What do you want me to do?
Well, for those who have been on the board before, what is there a standard typical?
The typical is around
acceptable-
5%.
Okay.
Is where we normally are. But that 5%, as I'm telling you, you gotta think, and I want everybody to have what they need, but how do we balance these needs, is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Question on talking the presents and the needs, and you were talking about, well, this bond is going to add so much percent that we have to allow for. But if I recall from what has been presented to us through time, we're also counting on certain
Things
other
falling
debts
off.
coming off, which should
Right.
change. That can be within this hypothetical calculation. Can be
No, it
counted
has to be in there.
against that percent that we're taking, so they'll
I
start
totally
to
agree
balance
with
each
you,
other out.
David. I totally agree with you. That's why I asked for that,
To try and figure that out.
yeah, so that, because when you have on fixed income, so the government gave me $12 extra for Social Security. I'm sure that that's gonna help this town to get funding for this school.
Well, I love that, because then out of the Medicare payment, they take most of that 12 from you anyway.
Right. So I spoke. Give the man some numbers. I already told him what mine was. But you need to calculate that so that when you come here, we have those numbers. That's what I'm saying.
So we can get discussion going. I would recommend that we, or I would move that we suggest, should it be a motion, 5% as a goal?
I second that.
I'd love to see it go down.
Well, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
great if it
More.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with that, because he has to get the other numbers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't want somebody to come up and say, hey, wait a minute, we should drop everybody's budget. Let's see what we can move to make it right, and that it does happen, because they're legitimate requests. I mean, just some of them you just can't get around.
Right.
Think of the ones you can't get around. Ryan, you can't get around. But the thing of it is, Ryan, how many people are you gonna have next year?
tonight.
How many people are you actually gonna have next year in the high school?
How many students total?
Yeah,
How many that would be impacted by that program?
yeah. How many are you really gonna have? That's what you need to tell the man.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in the program sheet. I mean, right now I have projected 3 to 6, but again, I mean, I give the same caveat as I do with any other special ed presentation.
So
Yeah.
are you trying to say that we could might bring yours down some?
No, I was just answering the question of how many I would have in the program.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could only have 2 people to each teacher, if I recall, if I remember your statement from a long time ago.
Yeah, before Ryan, and I think we've got to stay on track with what do we need to do around the budget. I don't kind of want to get into talking about individual requests from schools or teachers. I think as an administrative team, we need to go back and have that discussion, and then bring that, what that looks like back to you guys. But I'd prefer not to have that in, I don't think that's what this session is all about right now. Correct me
So
if I'm
can
wrong.
we do a vote on the percentage and?
Well, we need to know what the final decision is, though. If you do cut a budget, we need to know what you cut,
Yeah, oh no, I'll bring that back to you, absolutely.
But he needs a goal to shoot
Absolutely.
towards.
Yeah.
so that we can move it and see where it can actually fit and be fiscally responsible.
Yep.
So Betty, were you thinking we should have a lower,
Yeah,
Betty, were you thinking we should have a lower goal than 5%?
yeah,
I think the towns are looking for lower.
Yeah.
I'm interested, if I may, I'm interested in just, going back to this vision statement that stares us in the face every time we sit down at these
Yeah.
tables. I struggle with a number. I know you want a number, but, and I get that. As a selectman for 10 years, always tried to go back to the strategic goals and how that played off on the vision dynamic that we were trying to accomplish. And I mean, it'd be great if it's 0, right? It'd be great if it's a negative number, but at the same time, I don't think
It
anything's...
won't be negative.
No, and I don't think no, it's certainly not. And that makes sense, just with the dynamics of the way this works. At the same time, I'll just say now, I struggle to vote for a number based on, I really want to still hear the towns, I mean, I know it's hard to wait another week, but I do want to hear what they have to say. I'm interested to see that dynamic of, I'm from Manchester, but I haven't followed their budget this past year, so I'm interested to hear where they're sitting at this point in time. But I also, there's some necessities that we heard, obviously, and I wasn't able to be with you guys last week, so I apologize for that. I was in Florida, I tried to bring the sun home, and I didn't do that either. But at the same time, I watched the 2-hour and 20-minute meeting on YouTube. Fascinating stuff when you're watching it from home. But there are a lot of visions there that I'm interested, I really, having not heard Jay's perspective, maybe this needs to be taken offline too, to some extent, to kind of think about where you're at with some of this. But I think I want to make sure we're fulfilling that vision with regard to what your administrators are bringing forward. And so, boy, I struggle just to say a blanket number. I get it. I get that that's kind of where this is at. But I think we've done that for a lot of years, just following this process. And it's like, let's hit that number. But I'd like to, as a now semi-elected official, go back to Manchester when people call me and justify, right, what each of these numbers are telling us, versus, we kind of came in at this just based on the number, because I know what that argument looks like, and that is stay at as low as possible. Been there, done that, and been on there as a town person coming to to speak to this board. So in any event, I guess I'll vote on something, but I still would challenge that, you know, even if you can't get to that number, how do you make that?
Go ahead, guys.
I agree with Jeremy. I'm struggling with a number also, because I think if we listen to what the administrators said, they gave us their list of what they thought was necessary, and I think they're right on, but I also think that they should be the ones that should really look at it again, which I know that's what you're going to do, and figure out if they can prioritize, and we need to hear what they have to say a little bit more, I think, and also listen to what the towns do say before we give you a number. I'm not sure that I could vote, I wouldn't vote on 5%, but I just, I'm not sure that any percent at this time just doesn't feel quite right to me yet.
Go ahead, Dave.
Do we know anything about school funding for next year?
Yep. Yeah, so Governor Mills, it's called the ED 279, has come out. We are responsible for 69% of our budget. The state will fund 31% of that budget. That's a change from last year, which was 70% was our share and 30% was the town share. So the change has been 1%. We have very high property valuations, you guys know that. We are a property-rich town because of the lakes that we have, so that's something, we're not gonna see big fluctuations in state support, unfortunately. So, does that answer your question?
So Mount Vernon and Wayne have no extra money coming in.
I guess, I think the only, when you look back at the budget decreases, and this is from last year, and programs that faded away, I just, to me, I wonder if there's more there as far as, I don't think everything that is suggested works over time. So I think that there might be something there. I don't know what it is. The other thing is with this, the thing that we're doing with Winthrop and RSU 2, is there a way there to, we're looking for coaching, like coaching positions and stuff. If we have teams with 1 or 2 kids, is there a way to work that out and to like benefit both towns?
Yeah.
I mean, I can just, with some of the smaller programs or even non-sports programs like math team or speech and debate or any of that stuff, golf, whatever it is. I don't even know what that is. But if they, is there a way that we can get a little creative as far as instead of just throwing out like, we've had this for a while, we're gonna keep it. So that, I just think that's where we get these additional positions, is if we get creative on the other side.
So when it comes to the RSC, one of the things when it was first put together was they did talk about, was there any potential for teams, sharing teams, whether it was co or extracurricular activities. And that was one of the things that kind of helped kind of kickstart that discussion among the 3 districts. What we found was that it was kind of already going on, and then we just kind of clouded things by getting involved with that. But I absolutely agree with you, Adam, that we do have to continue to have conversations with them about.
Do we do anything with transportation? I'm assuming that the teams go to the same meets. Yeah. Is there a way to look at just cutting transportation costs with, we're driving right by their district anyways?
Yeah. Can certainly look into it. That's a really good comment.
Are you prepared for next week?
What have our increases been the last couple of years? Just out of curiosity, I can't recall. Bridget, do you know? Just kind of ballparks. I mean, is this way off?
Well, this is high. It's pretty high.
Especially with the bond that just passed, it just seems that it's gonna be a harder sell. I mean, I think in some ways. Especially listening to all those maintenance items last week, I was like, wow, there's a lot of dynamics here that, I don't know if I know you wouldn't want to
There's a
put
lot of
those into
things
the
that can't be
bond.
cut in that thing
There
because
are.
it's been cut for the last 3 years.
Right,
And last year, it got cut tremendously
Yeah.
because of Manchester.
interesting. So, yeah, right, I mean, think about some of these dynamics, it just makes it
Yeah.
for an interesting,
When something goes wrong, you have a major problem.
yeah. And then you have no heat in Manchester, yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things, right?
Manchester's failed 2 or 3 times this year already on the boiler.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad to see that one going.
Yeah, we all should be.
I have some figures in a minute.
Yeah, thank you so much, that's,
I don't have a lot of the numbers here, but last year's increase was about 4.1%,
okay.
budget to budget. I have to get more history. and
Sure,
I can do
yeah.
that.
And our community supported that at a pretty good clip, if I recall. I can't remember the numbers.
I think it was about 2 to 1, but it depends on the town you were in.
Right,
Greenfield was pretty low,
right.
close. Wayne did all right,
Okay.
but Mount Vernon, I think, was close also.
Makes it easier for both.
And you saw how the bond went through this year, Mount Vernon turned us down.
Right,
You gotta think of that already.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too close to call.
Hmm.
You wanna say anything, David?
Well, we've got a motion on the floor. Thinking we can get it off and then go on to the next.
I don't think it's a voting motion, but, no, it's just an idea.
It's just the direction.
Okay.
That's, so that give you an idea, okay? Shall we move on?
I don't think 5% was agreed upon. No amount was agreed
No.
upon, and...
Or was this an idea
and,
that he was going to look at?
I'm not even sure that was agreed upon.
Okay, what do you want to do, Betty?
I'm not, I don't care, but what you're saying,
No.
a number to shoot for, there were other people who were saying it needed to be lower than that.
Right.
So,
I'm hoping it comes in lower. Because you need to deduct from that 5 the cost of that bond. Because people are looking at that, it's coming out of their money. That's what I told them.
So one of the things that I guess I'm walking away with is that we would like a little bit of prioritized, what are the most
Right.
important things in this budget? I'm definitely hearing that. And you guys correct me if I'm hearing something wrong, okay? So I definitely will meet with my administrators and we'll try to prioritize a little bit the requests that they have put forward, as well as the directors. And then something else that I heard was that we're not ready to hit a certain number of percentage, but there was some people that would like to hear more from the town selectmen at the next meeting, which is next week. So so, you know, that wouldn't mean there would be any major changes, obviously, at this point. It'd just be prioritizing, and then let's talk with the town and hear what the town is saying also. Does that sound about right at this point?
And what was the third thing? Because you already lost it. You're gonna take the 2 years.
The
and
bond,
No, you're gonna have the next 2 years and start prioritizing, moving those things. So
Is
there's 3
that-
things that you gotta look at.
preparing a 3-year budget, is that something that is reasonable
Yes.
to do, especially between now and next week?
Yes. It's a human thing. It gets done on a computer.
I'm asking Bridget and Jay.
There does need to be a lot of thought that goes into that. You have to study the staffing, and it's not just total student count. You have to look at the student count in each school. I would have to get Sean to give me what his projections are on some of the other projects for future years. Again, and, you know, it takes some time. It's not just punching a computer, Gary.
I'm not, when I was a principal, I'm not sure that I would have been able to give you a 3-year budget because things change so much from year to year as far, I mean, when students come in and out on a weekly basis, it's difficult to know what students you're going to be teaching, and the needs of those particular students, as well as you can start to prioritize or determine what staffing needs are going to look like. But it could change drastically.
And at the same time that we think about all of this, right, we have these great strategic goals in front of us that I think are important to acknowledge as well. And so when you have an outcome like curriculum is differentiated to meet students where they are and help them to progress academically, emotionally, and socially, to keep that in mind, right? I mean, because that's something that there's a cost associated with making sure we're doing those dynamics as well. And I think, or at least I hope, our communities, maybe this is something to share with the towns before they come. If they haven't seen it already, maybe they should have seen it already. But if not, I think this would be really important for them to see it. It might at least help that justification be a little bit easier when you're thinking about why it might be 5% this year versus 4% last year. You know what I'm saying? I think making that argument is something that's going to be important because this is a whole new set of goals that didn't exist last year. So this is an opportunity, in my mind, to think about these 5 great goals and some of the outcomes. I mean, we won't be able to hit all the outcomes probably, but at this, because there's a lot here. But I think some of the stuff that's been proposed has linkages to this. And so that to me is where, and again, that is some work, speaking to Betty's perspective, right? I mean, again, if you were a principal, how do you link each one? But that's I think that at least starts to makes it clear, right? That this is toward our vision, our mission, and the goals associated therewith.
But I'm not sure in 1 week.
Well, no, I totally agree with you. This is but at least maybe one section, maybe one goal over the next maybe over the next month, or, you know, a couple goals in one if one's a little less daunting, perhaps. Maybe that's a way to think about this, Jay, in some way, is how do we link some of this to some of these goals so it makes it a little clearer.
And again, we have no idea where when 85% of your budget is staffing, we have no idea where negotiations is going to end up.
Right.
And so that's a real tough one to look for, you know.
Well, that and the equation, right, you know, 69% is our responsibility. The big debate in the last election was about the 55%, right? And so I think there's some education. Yeah, I know, there's a dynamics there. It's a different game.
Instructional process
No.
to tell you how that all works.
Yeah, but I think as far as getting support from our towns, it's important for them to figure out some way of having a cheat sheet around that. I know that's hard, but it's an important dynamic.
In a month, we vote on those.
I know, totally.
There isn't much time to horse around.
No, there isn't.
Okay. You set? Good, moving on.
All right.
Is it, before we move on, is it the whole board's request that we have a 3-year budget that you're asking for? You're asking for that, but is that an important place for Bridget and Jay and the other administrators to put their focus on, to do right now.
Go ahead.
Gary, I think I understand why you want this, but can you just explain it a little bit more about why you think it's important to have this 3-year budget? Because I'm thinking to myself, if I was a principal right now, I'd be going, I'd be pulling my hair out.
If
thinking,
you're
how am I
in
gonna do
industry,
this?
you would have to have something like this, because you have to be able to look ahead because the least of your people in your community have to be able to live.
I know.
And that is where we have to think. The state doesn't give the poor free. And so when you look at it, how many houses in your community are empty? We've got about 11 in our town. 11 that have been pushed out this last year.
So are you hearing that it's important to the community and to the people that we look 3 years out, that we ask our?
No, what I'm looking at is, we always come out with a high number in the year. What I'm looking for is, those are good requests. I don't want them to go away. What has happened in the next 2 years? Can something slide 1 year or 2 years to make this thing look even so that the public can live?
So you're thinking, could some of these things from this year be pushed into next year? Is that what?
Right.
Okay, I think that was a piece I missed. I still don't know.
I don't want it to go away. I just want it to be that you don't have a peak in a valley, and then you go way up. That's not cool.
So I'm feeling right now, and I could be wrong, that by asking the administrators to prioritize, they're doing that, exactly what you asked,
Right.
but it's not going to be like, okay, I've got to do 2 more years of budget. So I just want to make sure that we all understand what we're asking them to do.
Yeah, but you don't want to, if they're coming in with, there was one person that came in and said, I have nothing this year, but I'm going to have a major increase next year. Now, when you have a major increase, it might have to stay where it is. You know what I'm saying? But think ahead, and can you help the public out, the poorest of your people?
So I think that thinking ahead and really looking at those big items is a good idea. I just don't think that we can say, I wouldn't feel right asking the administrators to give us a 3-year budget rate next week. So I think looking at their priorities and thinking about the next couple of years, which I think they do anyway,
Right.
that would be helpful. But I'm just a little bit leery of asking them to give us a 3-year budget. That's all.
I would agree with that. When they're prioritizing, I know when I did prioritizing, I was looking, okay, this I can do this much this year, and then a little, some more the next year. That's part of prioritizing. But as far as giving a 3-year budget within the next week, I think it would be very difficult.
Moving on.
See if there's any citizen comments, because there are.
Any citizens for comments? Go ahead. Glad to see you.
Hi there, I'm Victoria Townley. I am the parent of a 4th grader at Reedfield Elementary. And I'm here to advocate for hiring an additional 5th grade teacher for next year so that this class can return to the 2-class format that they started in kindergarten and 1st grade. In 2nd grade, when these 2 classes came together for the first time, all of the students struggled to acclimate to a class size that had doubled and that was not conducive to individualized attention and support. The teachers did their very best to meet student needs in an environment that did not really allow it. And although I have the utmost respect and appreciation for all of the teachers and staff at Reedfield, the sheer number of students in one class, in one room, with so many diverse needs and behaviors does not provide the same learning opportunities and educational gains that smaller classes allow. As these students enter 5th grade next year and prepare to move on to the middle school, the number of students with such a broad range of capabilities and needs will limit the opportunity for them to adequately prepare for the increased expectations and demands of 6th grade and to succeed in their future academic endeavors. Empirical evidence supports the academic benefit of smaller class sizes. They've been linked to higher math and reading scores, greater likelihood of taking entrance exams for secondary education, and higher lifetime earnings. Smaller class size also has a positive impact on our teachers, who have more time to prepare for individualized lesson plans and to provide individual support and attention to each student on an ongoing basis. Smaller classes give our teachers the opportunity to be more attuned to the individual needs, achievements, and challenges in the classroom in a way that larger classes simply do not allow. In third grade, our already large class swelled at the start of the year due to many new families entering the district. They reached an overwhelming number of students in the class, making it too easy for the children who are easily distracted or who are less engaged or struggling academically to fall behind. The current fourth grade class is now at 22 students, and I notice on the principal's report, it is the largest class in all of our elementary schools. And up until December, it was actually 25. We had 3 students leave over Christmas break. Every year, we've had multiple students move into the district, and in particular into this class, and I'm very concerned that we're going to experience a similar growth and similar challenges during 5th grade. We have an opportunity to make sure that this, their final year at Reedfield, is full of opportunity for each student to reach their potential and to set them on a path for academic accomplishments that will have a huge impact on the course of their lives, both in school and beyond. At last week's meeting, a lot of the topics that were discussed were instructional excellence, equity in education, individual proficiency, and pace. And tonight, what came up was meeting not only the educational needs, but the social and emotional needs of our students, and meeting the students where they are. We have an opportunity to do this here. We owe it to all of these students to give them every possible chance for success, and we can achieve this, at least in part, by making sure that their final year at Reedfield is structured in such a way that the class size is small enough to promote an academic environment conducive to optimal learning and to individual attention and success for every student in the class. So I'm hoping that you will consider the budget request for an additional teacher for 5th grade so that we can really set these students up for academic achievement in middle school, high school, and beyond. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Firth. I'm the president of the Awesome Bear Society, which is the booster club at the high school. And I sat through all of this tonight expecting that I was going to stand here and make an argument for inclusion of uniforms in the budget, but as I've listened to all of this, I'm impressed again, as I was last week, with the complexity of your job of balancing every single request, which is equally important. And so I am going to defer what I was going to say to the prioritization of the A team. Okay.
Thank you. Any comments about items that are not in the budget? Adjustments, agenda.
We've already done that, so. From my point of view, sorry.
Go ahead.
Wait, is it a board adjustment?
Yeah.
A super quick thing. Can we, it seems like when sports teams have won state championships, we invited them to board meetings to clap and congratulate them. Can we do that for the girls Alpine and boys Nordic team?
That happened.
Next meeting.
Sweet. Thank you.
Good call.
I did not. I never go. Oh, okay.
It's coming.
It's coming.
We do have that on the agenda for the next
Thank you.
meeting.
That was easy.
Look at that, they're reading your mind.
I move to approve the minutes of February 27th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just have one, on the last page, page 4, paragraph, or whatever you call it. It says Chair Carr noted that on March 7th, they discussed IA and finances. I'm assuming that
That was
maybe.
2018.
Okay, so it was last year, not tomorrow.
I think it was at the, that big meeting.
The vision.
Yeah, that's the one.
The visioning.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure it wasn't.
All in favor? Passed.
So we're up to 6C. You have a policy, it's a first reading, but it's there to actually rescind. It's the EFE, competitive food sales, and sale of foods in competition with the school food service program. That was actually a policy that was put in place through Chapter 51. The state has actually repealed that particular chapter. And most of what is in that policy has kind of migrated itself over to our student wellness policy. So it's not like it actually has gone away. It's just in a different policy, and we no longer really need this policy. So what we're looking for is a motion to rescind, and then obviously a vote for that one.
I make a motion to rescind policy number EFE, competitive food sales.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And then we've got second reads on a JLC, the school health policy, and then as well as JLCB, the immunization of students. These are second reads, and we've had a lot of work done through the nurses and the health center that have really helped us be able to have policy updates on that, so.
Make a motion to accept. Yeah. Yeah, second read.
I move that we accept policy JLC, school health.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passed.
I move to accept policy JLCB, immunization of students.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passed. Okay.
So we're up to informational items, and I've asked, I know time is of the essence here, so I've asked our principals to just very quickly share one item that's going on in their schools. So if it's okay, I'll start with Dr. Conway, if that's okay. And if I can ask you guys to please go to the podium and the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. So 2 weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago, Ms. Brackley.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize,
Sure.
Dr. Conway. We did miss item E, which is discussion and vote on the 5-year strategic plan. So I rushed that. That one's on me.
Any discussion on the 5-year plan? Go ahead.
Actually, I had quite a few questions, but I sent it off to Jay, and he answered most of them, and it was great. One of the questions I did have was, and he did answer it, the goals from the previous 5-year strategic plan that we worked on, I just wondered if those goals were met, and if not, how are they incorporated into this new plan? And he has a big notebook.
Yeah.
I knew that.
So Dr. Wolfram was very diligent about making sure things got addressed within the strategic plan. She set up binders that addresses each particular outcome. I know several of the administrators that are here remember those sessions where they worked on making sure to get all of those together. So we're pretty much going to be doing the same kind of work moving forward from that. But I also do know that in the annual report, Dr. Wolfram did say that the strategic plan goals were met. And I took that at face value because I think she was very diligent about the work that she put into that. So that's, but it's certainly in my office. We can make it available if anyone wants to review anything. I brought them up because I did want you guys to see that they are kind of voluminous here, but I want you guys to know it's there. So if we do need to go back and make an amendment of some kind, we certainly can do that when it comes to the strategic plan, if you feel like something wasn't met.
And the evaluation of this new plan will be a similar process?
It will be a very similar process, and what I'd like to do is actually give annual updates, once a year, kind of give you an update of where we stand with it, and what particular parts that we are working on, because there is some very specific timelines there. So I think we need to be very transparent of what is the work that's been done, and, you know, if we're not meeting that, we need to be honest about that so that you guys kind of know what's involved there, so.
So one of the question that I did have was, in going through this, under persons responsible, I saw a lot of places where it was principals, administrative team, principals, administrative team. Just seemed like there was a lot for them to do, so, and there was nothing for the board to do. And I know last time we did the strategic plan, we did include some things for the board to do. So I just had one little suggestion, that under the communication, it's the goal number 5, outcome 3. I'm just wondering if maybe the board communication committee should be a part of that outcome.
Yep. And I agree with that. So in tonight's vote, I will make that amendment and add that in, and you guys will get all brand-new copies so that you see that added in. Because I do agree with that. I think that's a really good idea.
And I don't know if there are any other, I mean, I could have put a lot of places where the board could have some responsibility, but I didn't, so, but I thought that one probably would be a good place for them.
Well,
for
and
us.
just because we approve this strategic plan doesn't mean that there can't be, as you get into it and working, you may decide on other groups to include as being responsible.
And that was another question that I had, just about if this is like set in stone, that it doesn't change. But I think, not Gary, sorry, Gary, Jay answered my question about that, is that it's really an ongoing plan that can, you know, there were some things in here
It's a
that
living document.
I thought were a little vague, but I know it's hard to plan out for 5 years, so I'm just hoping that the details will become more clear as you work through it, and
Yes.
things might be added or changed, so it's not actually something that, you know, you have to stick to every single word that's in here.
Right,
It can be
absolutely, because I feel like there are a few things that I'm actually very excited about, that it gives us the ability to kind of go out and explore them and develop them, because we will be doing things we've never done before, especially like, I know there's been a lot of questions about multiple pathways, which is in our policy, and it's just kind of a generalized statement in our graduation policy, and I think this plan gives us an opportunity to say, hey, let's go develop some real plans that aren't these general kind of vague things, but that there's a lot of work that we'll need to do around that, so, but it allows us to be able to actually go out and say, hey, let's develop something, so.
Thank you. The last thing I just wanted to say was thank you for everyone that put all the work into this, because I know this is a lot of work and it's very time-consuming. So thank you all and thank you for including the community in developing some of this, so. That's all.
I move that we accept the 5-year strategic plan.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Pass. Okay, so now we're up to principals?
Report now, Dr. Conway, thank you.
So good evening, folks, and thank you again for supporting the Spain trip. Really quick, 2 Sundays ago, Ms. Brackley and myself visited the homes of our top 10 students. We brought them brownies and let them know what number they graduated or gonna graduate. It's always nice to do that. You know, you see them come up for 8th grade transition, you blink your eyes, and they're graduating. That was it.
So you made a statement in your report. You got 40 students going to the Capital Area Technical School. We have, what, 46 slots, don't we? Something like that?
I think we have 64 slots.
Okay. So that's all that was interested in that?
Well, I think it's partial interest and also partial what slots we get. I think there are certain programs that we could always put more people in, and then there's some kind of horse trading that goes on between the guidance counselors of trying to get more slots and giving openings to other schools that maybe want more in culinary arts, and maybe we want more in CNA or whatever.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Conway. Can I get Dr. Levack next?
Good evening. I just wanted to highlight our arts night. We had that on Sunday this past week, or I guess this Sunday. And we had some really amazing student performers. We had performers singing. We had some one-man shows. We had a magic act. That was really a comic act. We had some amazing instrumental work, and it was organized by the Fine Arts Department and also with the world languages, so they made all the desserts and all the food. And it raised money for our PTO and for the UAs, so it's about $850 that they each got, so it was a great success.
Thank you. Let's see, how about Mr. Boston? Do you mind going next?
So at Reed Field, as you all know, we have monitors in the school, and we've been populating with pictures of the learning that's been going on. The most recent ones are, we have our students playing the ukuleles with Mrs. Tripp in music class. We have some pictures of students doing some programming with robots, which is really cool. And there's some pictures of Mrs. Tweedy's math class, which looks more like a science lab of how to understand fractions. So when you get a chance to come into school, take a look at it.
So wait a minute. You have, NUIA scores came out. So is it-
We're going to be bringing a presentation to you guys, not the next I believe it's the third meeting in March here, so that's on the agenda, that's coming up, so, yes.
So we will see some results.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
But it also, Refill Community got their deal for bikes. I like that idea. Good job getting that done. I saw that.
Mrs. Hartford, do you mind going next?
So at Manchester, we're kind of really making a really big focus on, we have skilled instructors who instruct the children for reading, and we have interventionists who help when children are struggling. But we have also made a really big push from January, had the Read to Me month where families were encouraged to read to and with their children, send pictures in. We have a beautiful bulletin board of that. This, in the month of March, we have a Scholastic Book Fair coming back for the first time in like 8 years. And we're going to have a book, Bikes for Books. We met with the Masons this morning. That will be in April that they'll be reading. So it's just a real big push to do the reading practice, because it is the number one priority of what we do in a school, is supporting and encouraging reading. In addition, our fifth graders are also bringing back the spaghetti dinner where they prepare parents help cook and prepare the food. And then the fifth grade students are waitresses and maitre d' and a hostess and help serve the food. So they're doing all the work so that they can generate money for their end of the year trip. So that's a new returned endeavor at Manchester, and it's met with huge enthusiasm. The children are really excited. They're planning their outfits. They trying to get a grasp of what their expectation would be for them. So we're very excited about that. There will be a pie auction as well. So it will be kind of a community building experience in Manchester, and it's scheduled for, I believe, April 5th, the first Friday in April. So we're just excited about ways that we can blend learning and fundraising so that they are understanding that the expenditure for their field trip is up to them, and how much involved that they need to be and be an active part of it rather than just assume that it will happen for them. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderfully exciting.
Thank you. Mrs. Delmeyer?
I ran the pie auction when my 22-year-old was there, so that spaghetti supper goes back quite a ways. Good times. Earlier in the year, I talked to you about Mount Vernon having their Title I Math Night, and last Thursday we had Wayne's Title I Math Night. It got delayed for a couple snow days. Again, we had an incredible turnout. Parents, grandparents, and students' friends came to a math night. Sue Hogan, the math interventionist, facilitated that, along with Deb Hatt, the math interventionist from Mount Vernon. Nancy Harriman and I were there. And again, we had a guest author, Christopher Danielson. He kind of zoomed in from Minnesota, and he is the author of some young children's math books of Which One Doesn't Belong and How Many, and he also facilitated a Which One Doesn't Belong math activity right there that night, so it was a really big success.
Thank you. Mr. Meserve?
Last week, I attended the last home unified basketball team here at the high school. It was a pretty exciting event, as they all were, but that one I think was during Winter Carnival week. There were a lot of students who participated, a lot of spectators in the stands. Brought my kids to it too, and I think the coaches, I know Ms. Watson and Ms. Twiss put a lot of time and energy into it. The students, if any of you get a chance to watch those games, they're really a joy to watch. I know Mr. Plord this year was doing some announcing, calling the students' names out. There's a dance number in the middle, but overall, you know, it's just a really positive experience. So if you're ever having a long day and you know that there's a home unified basketball game or somewhere else, you should go to it, and it'll definitely put a smile on your face. But that was a great thing to watch last week. So their season seemed to be a success, and I know they're looking forward to trying to do track in the spring. Yep.
So you have a comment in the third paragraph that Reedfield participated in a readiness skill program. Only one school?
That's one of our district-wide specialized programs that I spoke about when I gave the budget presentation. So we have a K-5 program at Reedfield Elementary called the Readiness Skills Program. We also have a 6-8 program at the middle school, and the budget that I proposed was including an extension of those programs up to the high school level.
So, but it said Reedfield, so.
Correct.
The other three schools, Manchester, Wayne, did they participate in this also?
It's a district-wide program for students who may need that higher level of support, and so students within the district would have access to that.
So those three schools are doing fantastic.
I said that they would have access to it if some of those students would need it. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Meserve. Mr. Vos, I didn't talk to you ahead of time. Is there anything you'd like to add? Oh, okay, thank you.
So Nancy, you have a comment in here, hoping that we would research what math program in other schools that are succeed are using and find one that would help boost the NUIA scores. How's that going?
Well, my board report was about the fact that we have made a decision to, we actually were selected nationally to be a pilot site for illustrative math for K-5. So that will be our math program for the next 2 years. We are not adopting it, we're piloting it. And then at the end of that time period, we can decide whether we want to adopt that program, we want to look at other commercial programs, or we want to go back to our district-created curriculum. So those quotes in the middle, we surveyed all teachers, K-5, we surveyed administrators, K-5, we also gave other administrators an opportunity to weigh in at A-team, and we surveyed the math interventionists. We surveyed all those groups as discrete groups, and I tried to give you a flavor of, I chose comments that were representative not just of what one person said, but what multiple people said, because I thought it gave you a good picture of why we made the decision to go forward.
I like that. So, he also made a comment down here at the end of that time period, the district can choose to adopt the IM curriculum. So that's what you're also.
So what will be good is, in the absence of an in-district full-time math coach this year, it's a struggle to maintain our own district curriculum and provide all the professional development that's needed, and I think that teachers' comments and the interventionist comments reflected that they really are looking forward. Part of this pilot process will be, they will be providing professional development regularly for us. They'll be coming to the district and providing it here. So to have that consistency, both in programming and in professional development for a period of 2 years, it's very consistent with what we're currently doing in terms of beliefs and practices, but it will be much more coherent, and that's what we're all looking forward to, I think. And so it buys us a couple years of high quality PD and implementation, and then we can decide. You know, it'll be a
So then in
collaborative
2
decision.
years, you're looking to replace Sarah? Is that what the last paragraph is?
No, we're actually have it posted right now. A math coach and a literacy coach position is posted, so those people will be hired for next year, hopefully soon.
Okay, all right.
Is it all right if I ask a question? Just a quick question, Nancy. So the illustrative math pilot starts in the fall?
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll be doing 2 days, we'll be providing 2 days of professional development this summer. Actually, illustrative math will be, but I'm on the phone, I was just on the phone with her today. We're on the phone regularly as far as doing all the arrangements, and the principals are being really helpful in getting all the setup done.
Thank you, because this is a big deal to be chosen as a pilot site. It really is. I mean, I work with a lot of schools that put in for it across the state, and it is a big deal that we were chosen. So thank you for all your work in getting it. It's an awesome program.
Thank you.
Good. So now we're up to a question for you.
Oh, sure.
So you made a statement that utopian, and I had to look up those words. And dystopian fiction class.
That's not my report, though. That's,
Might not be your report, but they refer to you.
yeah. Remember, that's from the committee meeting, yes. Right.
You made the statement. So I looked up those words, and what it really is, it has.
No, those are, that's the name of the classes that are being proposed. I didn't make the statement.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's the
But
name of the classes that's being proposed.
So that class, as I understand it, is for foreign students, when I looked it up under Google, in English.
No,
Mostly.
no. I'll get you the course description for that class. That's,
Okay.
yeah, because that's not.
Because it has, when you look it up, those two words deal with a course curriculum for foreign students.
Where are you?
I'll get you the course description. So.
50 of 54.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll get you that.
See, I read these things closely. All right, let's move on. Ad hoc, did you meet anybody, Adam, this time?
The meeting was during our board meeting.
It didn't happen?
What, it was during the board meeting last week.
Last week.
Oh, okay. Committee reports, we have none, so we're done.
I have for the policy committee, I have a request from the negotiation team that you look at a specific policy on personal freedom. It is part of the negotiated contract right now, but it's educational policy. And so if we want to get some educational policy out of the contract, then we need to have a policy on file.
So we don't have a policy on this?
No.
No.
Personal freedom. And you can, Jay can get you the language that's in the contract now.
Yeah, I can share that.
Does MMA have this policy on file?
What's that?
That's what we'll do.
It does have one on file.
We'll find out. I don't know if they have. I'm thinking they do. We just need to request it and then work it through the policy committee.
Okay, we'll be done. That's it?
I think so.
Adjourned.